Welcome back to the Skids Giggles podcast. I'm Pascal, chief instigator of the show and your host. I'm joined by my co-host and our resident engineer, the rumor to my team, Bryson.
Hey guys, I know it's been a while, and I know you missed our voices, but we're back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year indeed. Well, it has indeed been a while since we recorded for the last time. What have you been up to since then?
Mostly gaining weight, the winter thing. But I finished building up my hardtail into a rigid bike. So I'm rocking a rigid fork, of course a hardtail. It's steel frame, steel fork, but I do have a little bit of suspension in the tires via Cushcore, wink wink. And I've just been riding it around, some trails, some fire roads, single speed, crushing myself in the process. So how about you, Pascal? You been riding a bike?
Well, maybe once or twice per day for a long time because I've spent Christmas break on my own. Family has left me to go see the mother-in-law for 3 weeks. So I made the most of it, put in some big rides, decamped down south to Finale for a couple of days. It was a great time. Got to see quite a lot of our friends of the podcast, fellow racers, former guests, a great number of people. I had a great time. And then I came back. We all came down with COVID. And so here we are. Been isolated for 2 weeks. And now we're sitting back down to talk about mountain bikes again.
On this special edition of the ISO cast.
Before we get to the meat of the episode today, let's briefly do our spiel with the social and where you guys can find more information about the Skids and Giggles podcast. We are currently most active on our Instagram, where you can skid right into our messages and follow along at Skids and Giggles. And you can find our website with all the relevant links and info under the URL skidsandgiggles.com. Also, if you guys like what we're doing and want to know what's up, just give us a follow on Spotify. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to great podcasts.
Speaking of Spotify, do you know that they have a rating system now? So you can give between 1 and 5 stars for podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, that's a cool thing. They just released it at the beginning of the year. And so if you guys like what we're doing, also on Spotify, you can ship us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more people like you and helps us grow our show.
For any reason you think that we don't deserve a 5-star rating, we'd love to hear about it. Actually, it's one of my goals for this year is I really want to connect with more of our listeners. So please, I'm looking forward to it. One point I'd like to recap from last year is our effort for our Stutz and Giggles campaign, where we raised some money for Vel Africa. Pascal, you just did a quick calculation, didn't you? You probably have a number you want us to throw out there.
Just let me get my notes here.
Well, you're under a pile of papers there. What's going on?
I know. It was so much. Joking aside, we did donate a grand total of 1,310 francs to Vel Africa, and we're super stoked that we'll have one of their guys come on the show very soon to talk about Vel Africa, what they're doing, and how they're making a difference in the world through the power of the bicycle. And of course, we're super stoked that we could make a difference with our contribution.
Stutz and Giggles deserves a 5-star rating.
Coming back to today's episode, we sat back down with the 4-time Skids and Giggles champion, James Drew of Bike the World, to talk about the state of the industry in 2022. Of course, we sat down with James exactly a year ago to talk about what it took to run a business in the bike industry in 2021. Of course, we touched on a lot of those things we talked about. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, it's of course still in our archives. You can find it on our homepage. You can find it on whichever app you're listening to podcasts as episode number 1. Bryson, what were your highlights from the conversation?
Without giving too much away, I will say James is full of surprises, yet I was thoroughly impressed to hear about his prediction pretty much coming true. The fact that in-house manufacturing is going to carry some small manufacturers up into the business, like help promote their business and their game. And on the flip side, it's looking like the disruption to the industry via our pandemic is going to continue on. So let's dive into the podcast and suss out all the details.
We'll catch you after the show. All right, today we sit back down with the 4-time Skids and Giggles champion, James Drew. How is it going, buddy?
I'm all right. Thank you very much, Pascal.
And we also have Bryson with us today. Bryson, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Well, it is pretty much exactly a year ago that we sat down to record episode 1 of the Skids and Giggles podcast. At the time, we set out to talk about what it takes to run a business in the bike industry in 2021. So we thought it was fitting to sit down again with the man, the myth, the legend, to talk through what it takes to do the same thing in 22 and touch base on some of the topics we talked about a year ago, see where we stand with those, and what's to come this year and maybe the years to go after that. So James, it's been a year ago. So what happened?
Yes.
What happened?
I must say 2021 was a very interesting year. A lot happened, actually. There was, I must say, I won't complain. We did quite well. I think delivery is the biggest issue. If we want to talk about that, I'm sure everyone wants to hear more about that. But I have to be honest, I noticed some quite peculiar trends as well, and I don't know if this is this is all actually caused by COVID, the whole situation we're in, but one that springs right to mind now is normally we have a really good December, like a lot of sales just before Christmas, and this year we didn't.
Because there's no bikes.
I'm not going to complain because I don't really sell bikes. The most thing I sell is probably hubs at the moment, hubs or handlebars. But I have a feeling everyone got kind of bummed out by this new wave, this new virus coming, and kind of shut down. I didn't even know. I noticed it not only in the bike industry, but generally people just seem to be a bit down. So I think that was a surprise for me. Because December's normally pretty hectic leading up to Christmas, but this year was dead. So I went skiing a lot, which was nice.
Oh, well, I don't think we we can ignore this this total here we go again feeling from the year before. So it's kind of understandable, but. The rest of the year, did some of the stuff we talked about a year ago, did that pan out? I mean, of course, delivery times has always been an issue, but some of the other themes, so like, having a lot of new riders in the market and buying new bikes and buying upgrades. We talked a lot about customization. How has that panned out over the year?
I would say that panned out very well for me. I have one or two brands who probably they suffered a bit because of delivery issues. However, all the brands I have that manufacture at home that kind of pulled through in the very beginning of the year and kept us going was, I would say, later in the year, shall we say, going into autumn. A lot of the brands I have which were struggling with delivery also then pulled through. So we could really keep it going through the year. So no complaints. I also, if you talk about customization, my big question, there's something I'm wondering about. Are people now buying more expensive parts because they can't get hold of other parts? That's always been in the back of my head. Is this kind of a honeymoon period, and if COVID ever ends, will it stop? Will people start looking at buying cheaper options, or will it continue with the quality? So it's an interesting one, actually.
Oh, that's for sure. And I mean, it also nicely ties in with a lot of the other things that we talked about last year, which I think one of the key themes was this sustainability. And we also had this other episode and talk with Phil Law of Pembury, which Interesting enough, is getting some more traction now because he's been featured in this the European Bike Project Pink Bike articles. So now people are coming back to that episode to hear it straight from Phil himself. It's actually quite interesting to see in the data. But this sustainability piece kind of ties in nicely with what you just said, because typically bits and pieces that are manufactured at home, they are not necessarily known to be the cheapest. They're a bit more higher value, but they play to that theme of like, okay, well, it's maybe more expensive, but I know exactly where it's coming from. That the person that is putting it together is earning a decent living, and we're not destroying the planet, and whatever carbon we're offsetting with this production, we're offsetting it with new trees in the case of Pembrey. So is that something that is keeping going this year, or is that something that has been on?
Well, I can't say much, but it's going to explode. That is.
Okay, and based on what do you say that?
The orders. And no, we have some big customers who are buying into that and also really believe in the what's the word I'm looking for? The whole idea behind what Phil's doing. I also think the fact that there has been issues with delivery, a lot of people have started to look at other options and probably found, hey, there's some guys out there who are doing really neat, smart things. They are being sustainable. They are trying to help. Trying to improve things, and it's very possible that these things wouldn't have been noticed in a different type of market, so a different environment where everyone's just clamoring to be cheaper than the rest. I suppose we've had the luxury of having having a deficit of a lot of products, so it's how do you say, a seller's market.
Oh, for sure. If you're something to sell, then it's gonna it's gonna help you a lot.
It's
at the
gonna
minute.
help.
That's for sure.
That is true.
But coming back on certainly on the transparency piece is something after our conversations last year, it is really something I started thinking a lot about, and of course with some of the brand that you are also working with, it is something that's increasingly put at center stage of what companies do. So I'm thinking of We Are One with the release of their own bike, and they specifically say that every single bits and bobs that is in their bike is made in a perimeter of 500 kilometers from Kamloops.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So. And they know all their suppliers, etc. So that's So it's certainly something that has more legs. Also, as more brands get involved.
Yeah, no, I think that's. That's definitely something that's interesting. And I mean, if you look at it, if you look at We Are One, the fact that they know where everything's coming from. They know the people that they're sourcing it. They know what's going on. That does also it makes things easier, and it makes it's easier to track the whole sustainability of what you're doing. If you're if you're still sourcing, I don't know, your aluminium from China or wherever, you don't really know where it's coming from. You can't be 100% sure how sustainable you're actually being.
Well, and it's also something along the lines of quality assurance, right? So it is much easier to work with people that are just literally a couple of kilometers down the road, and you can go there in person and check on their tooling and check on their machinery. I know that's something that Bryson is feeling very passionately about. tooling and quality assurance, but yeah, I mean it's I think it's an important theme. And I think what people are not seeing at the minute is kind of the real life benefit for them right now, or even in the immediate future. And my personal view is that, of course, as just from an experience, that some of those brands that are working in that way, they have not had any issues to deliver. You can call them at their factory, and it's like, this is what I need, this is what I'm interested in. Can you offer me something like this? Yeah, for sure. And then 2 weeks later, you have it on your doorstep. And for example, right? Apart from the sustainability piece, because one of the big questions or big challenges that still needs to be solved with the sustainability piece is, right now it's put on the consumer, because you're at the end of the day, you're still buying new product. So we need to solve also for the fact that there needs to be a benefit apart from just the new product.
Well, it's. I think we all need to. I mean, for example, for me, it's this whole, what's going on, and if we talk about sustainability or being conscious, shall we say, it's got me thinking a lot. I mean, there's a lot more we can do, actually. If you just look at packaging, for example, Pembury does that very well. Industry 9 as well. No plastic, only recycled products, cardboard, paper. And it makes me think, I do have a few other brands where the packaging can be slightly over the top, which is fantastic for the customer. But there's, it gets me thinking, okay, I can probably, do the same effect, but be a lot more conscious. So that's something I've looked into, is actually buying products in bulk without packaging and doing my own packaging, and just trying to, cut down on the amount of waste. Because if you look at France, I think they banned all plastic packaging for fruit and veg now. Haven't they? And I find that interesting, because at the moment we're not being forced to do it. So I suppose maybe people do try and find an easy way out, but it gets me thinking, okay, why don't I do it? I can maybe set an example, maybe get other people thinking, or even consumers thinking. It's one thing I've started to do is I recycle boxes. I haven't been doing it for long, but I want to get a stamp. So, if I get a box, I might just use it again and send it out to the customer. It might not be perfect. And, they might get it and think, what the hell? What's this? This box is a bit tatty. But the idea is to get a stamp that just says, recycled box, and just stamp on there. And so people really kind of get the message. Oh, okay, wow, they're reusing this box. They're trying to do something good. They're not just, using a new one every time they want to send the smallest piece, or the smallest part. So I have to say, I think there's a lot more people can do. I think Phil's setting a super example. And I think if people can start to fall into that kind of mindset, I think we can do a lot, actually. Every little helps, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Good old Tesco shopper.
What are you talking about? It has nothing to do with the fact that they were open 24 hours.
There you go.
And they had a booze section.
There you go. Anyway, but coming back to some of the themes, some of the things we talked about as well last time around was also kind of the direct to consumer and how certainly the big direct to consumer bike brands, how they are making an impact. I have very good examples from personal friends of mine, that have been very positively surprised about the ability to deliver, but some of them have just reached a certain critical size in the market that they can obviously command the production capacity. But are you seeing the first signs of direct to consumer accessories and like components as well?
Well, everyone's direct to consumer. That's been going on for a while. I mean, I think, yeah, all of the brands I work with, they do direct consumer, or we call it dealer direct, don't we? And to be fair, I do the same. I mean, I had a few of my bike shops were maybe less keen that I started my own website. But my argument is okay. So we have big competition in Germany. We have big web shops who are selling the same brands into Switzerland. What would you prefer? That I can sell online and get the online customers and keep the cash in Switzerland and have a lot more liquidity for you guys so I can offer better availability? Or should we just give everything to some big German internet shop, for example? I mean, that's something I don't fight with anymore. That's kind of just a reality of the industry. That's something I had probably bigger issue with about 3 years ago, as I noticed, encroachment into my market, and I wasn't anymore the go-to place to get that certain brand. But I think the times are changing. But yeah, when I think about it, all of my suppliers sell directly as well. But when we talk about that, the biggest issue, and I think that's something that maybe people don't understand, is if you buy anything from the US or Canada directly and have it shipped to Switzerland, it's expensive, very expensive. And you will also have to pay all the duties and the VAT on top of that. Yeah, I've had this conversation with a few end consumers who have got in touch with me and said, well, when I go on their website, it's a bit cheaper. And I say, okay, but that's VAT free and that's shipping free. So if you calculate all of those costs together, it's actually going to be cheaper to buy it from me. Which is it's an interesting topic, because I noticed a few people don't really understand. I had one guy who actually wrote to me after he bought direct and said, yeah, okay, I'm really sorry, that was the completely the wrong thing to do. I should have bought it from you, it would have been cheaper. I would have had a service partner in Switzerland, I would have had someone to speak to, because actually he ordered the wrong part and then got in touch with me and said, can I change it through you? And I was like, well, you didn't buy it from me. And he's like, yeah, but I can't really send it back now. It wasn't a big part. It was, I think, $200 the part. He's like, yeah, it's going to cost me $140 to send it back to Canada, or 140 euros, I think. And I'm like, yep. And I'm like, look, I'll swap it for you, no problem. But, just so you know, if you want something in the future, you know where you need to come and get it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to make that mistake again. Thank you very much. You're great. But I think there's a lot of, if we talk about direct sales, it's a, how should we say? It works very well in your own market, but it doesn't work very well globally. It's not really that realistic. Shipping prices are just too high, and dealing with tax and all of that stuff, that is not fun. It's not fun to say, spend all your hard-earned cash, shall we say, on something worth 2,000 euros or 2,000 Swiss francs, and then you get 161 franc VAT bill. And that's a shock. And then it cost $140 to have it shipped. It's these are kind of things. I think people are learning from that, and I think what I've noticed is people who are looking for really high-end, nice products, trendy products. I think they often look a lot more closer to home. I think one thing I've noticed when it gets to probably if you're going over about $500, it gets people want to speak to someone. They want to talk to you. They want to email you. They want to speak the same language as you. They want to know where you are, and that's a trust thing. So I think it is a very interesting topic, and I mean I can only speak from my experiences, but I don't know if hey, I can buy something really cheap and have it shipped from goodness knows where. I don't know if that's always as pretty as it sounds, shall we say.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just to illustrate the point you made with regards to tax and shipping and customs and all that. I mean, it took Canyon how long to figure out the Swiss customs? 10 years. I mean, they only
Something like that.
right. So it's one thing, and of course within the EU, that's one discussion. But as soon as you have different different countries and different tax regimes, etc., then all of a sudden this.
Oh, I'll tell you
muddled.
something that's really funny. So it's quicker to ship stuff from the UK to Switzerland now than it is from the UK to France.
Well, because they need to settle their fishery fights first.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, if you want to ship this piece, I want my fish first.
I get something from Pembury, it takes 3 days. He's like, yeah, if I ship something anywhere else in Europe, it takes like 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, Brexit pending.
Yeah,
yes.
I guess that's talking about the themes, and that's not only looking in the small pond of the bike industry. That's of course something that we are observing across the entire economy. Is now the reality of Brexit and what it really means. So not wanting to dive too deep into that depressing discussion, but.
You don't? Oh, I love talking about it. We have a chat about Bojo as well.
Yeah, and this garden parties.
But
pandemic,
yeah, I mean,
pandemic parties.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, on that, I mean, if you really want to talk about sustainability as well, buy local. Everyone knows that. I mean. Well, no, that's common sense. Yeah, I mean, you can buy stuff abroad. I buy stuff abroad, but if you can buy it local, why not buy it local? Why not help your local economy instead of helping someone else's, or lining the pockets of some guy whose pockets are pretty full already.
Very true. Very true. But not to take undue credit for this brilliant discussion we just had. I mean, Robin Schaub, our dear friend of the podcast, he motivated some of that question, but he also had another sub point that he wanted to know, and I guess you answered it partially. Is like, do you see in your component brands, do you see any trends that are happening, be it direct to consumer or not in your case, and how do you prepare for your future?
Well, like I said, all of the brands I work with sell direct to consumer already. If I'm losing a lot of sales to them, that's very hard to quantify. It is possible. I think Industry 9, it is more than likely. I think with like Cro-Mag or Title, which don't offer things at those price levels, very unlikely because the shipping costs are too high. How I'm preparing for the future is, I mean, I've pretty much done the same. So, I mean, if you talk about selling, I think omni-channel or multi-channel is the way to go, and that's what I do. I mean, I notice I have some customers who they get in touch with me, and I can say, yeah, go to a dealer, please. But I already know then they won't. They just get pissed. They just get annoyed. They're just like, yeah, okay, this guy's an idiot. I want to give him my money, and he doesn't want it. So, I mean, you have to say yes. If I think about preparing for the future, I think me specifically is what I've learned to do is diversify. So I don't ever stop moving. I'm always looking for something new. I'm always, trying to find a new brand, or trying to get into something else, or shall we say trying to grow. I think that's the only way forward, really, is it's never been my idea to just stay the way I am and earn the same for, not that I earn anything, but earn nothing for the rest of my life. The idea is to grow and make something and to become bigger. And the most important thing, which I'm sure most people realize, is it's all about leads. You want to generate leads. You want to build relationships with your customers. You want to have a lot of customers, and as soon as you have that and you have happy customers and you provide a good service, you will win over any direct model, because they will always come back to you. They might come back to you and say, hey, by the way, I can get this for this price online. And you'll go, yeah, okay, fine. You're a good customer. Let's see what we can do. But I think you should never underestimate that. And that's the most important part of what I do, is I try and provide the best service to my customers. And they come back and they're happy. And they're like, why should I go and buy somewhere cheaper?
Oh, it's actually a very good point. I mean, especially when you think about the spectrum of components, right? So, spectrum of components goes from stem that is really hard to mess up and make any mistakes installing and stuff, apart from over torquing your bolts and stuff. But you probably don't need too much service work for that. But if you talk about your 3,000 franc wheel set, carbon rims, or even aluminium rims, sometimes, not that they cost 3,000 francs, but sometimes you do get from your local dealer, like James, you get fantastic support if something goes wrong, which it obviously always does. But
what are you talking about?
Yeah. But
look, I'll illustrate it for you. So hang on.
So we get a visual from James. It's
an upside down triangle.
Oh, there you go.
So this is a sales model. So the sail, that's the smallest. Oh, hang on, here you got to see it. Sail, that's the smallest bit. Yeah, that's not necessarily the easiest bit, but that's probably the bit that's not that relevant when it comes to building good customer relationships. Yeah, and then you have here the follow-up. Hey, you bought this. How's it going? Everything okay? Do you need any help? Do you have any questions? And then afterwards, the service. Something goes wrong. Or what I do, for example, people that buy wheel sets, in my calendar, I set a yearly reminder, and I just send them an email to say, hey, you've had your wheel set for a year now. Do you want to get it serviced? Just get in touch with me. And I'd say, 70% of people are like, oh yeah, I should probably do that. And these kind of things that customers like, they're like, oh yeah, and you're like, hey, it's no problem. I'll even come and pick it up and organize everything for you, and they're happy. They don't have to worry about it. You're happy because it lasts longer, and they don't turn up after 3 years and it's fucked. I mean, I'd say that is how I prepare for my future. Make sure I have people that want to come to me, because I hope I can do the best for them. Doesn't always work out.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes. Bryson?
It really sounds like you're on point, James. We don't need to give you a whole bunch of praise. It's almost like you have some kind of prescient vision for your future, because I agree with you entirely about the service aspect. As you were describing that situation, it brought a memory to me. And I was reading a while back that around the turn of the industry, where we started to automate a lot of things in our factories and such, and everyone was afraid that, oh my gosh, my my job will be taken away because they'll automate this, and then I'll be out of a job. It happened in the same way where the service jobs, they didn't go away from automation. It was the very small, menial or tedious things that you could just replace with like a pick and a place, like a robot or something like that. But really, when you have a service, then having someone to deal with in person really was the key to providing that service. And as you say, it's what is probably going to bring you, or at least keep you at that in that area where you'll be at the top, or you'll be in the people's eye, and you'll be favored. Therefore, kind of securing your future in terms of being a distributor and offering a service.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I do the same. I mean, to be honest, I sometimes I buy things that are probably cheaper somewhere else, but I have a place where I buy them. I'm really happy with them, and I'm like, yeah, I'd rather support them and give them my money, And okay, it's 2 francs more expensive, but that makes me happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really, there's a kind of a correlation between this direct to consumer and automation. It's kind of like a shortcut, or like an easier way, or a simple path, and it was easy to implement. And now it's turning out to be a little bit of a headache, but for, I guess, several different reasons. I don't know all of them, but it's also the same way with automation and machinery. Like machinery needs servicing, or a new internet service provider goes in and it changes the way that locations are dialed in, and blah blah blah. Like automation isn't just plug and play. So in the same way that I think brands going direct isn't just plug and play. There's a lot of work that has to be done on the back end to support that, and maybe they're putting a little bit too much effort into providing that service when there is a really good model already, which is brick and mortar, or in your case, a personalized service.
Yeah, well, everyone wants to cut out the middleman. I mean, I'm a middleman.
Sure, but you're providing value.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, it's not that easy as well. I mean, if you look at like direct sales, I mean, I remember, if we talk about YT, they're the ones that really kicked this whole direct sales off. And I remember, I mean, that was a long time ago. Gee, I can't remember how long. It was a while ago. I was less grey back then. But what I remember is all of a sudden, dealers like refuse to service them. Like, no, because they're ruining the market and this and this and that, and send them out. Apart from one that we all know very well, Greg. And I remember him talking about it and said, why would I refuse to service that? That's just ridiculous. I mean, that's money. And if you focus on service, the margins are way higher than selling products. If you talk about bike shops, you want to do, I mean, when I did retail management at Trek, we used to say you want to focus on about 80% of your turnover being service and 20% sales. If you can hit that, then, gravy train. It's looking good. So, it's very interesting. But I also think, like, if you look at these direct models, especially at bikes, I think it's unrealistic to send from one location bikes all over the world and not to have a service partner at the location. You need someone on the ground who can deal with problems, especially when you're talking about these prices and bikes are also complex. They got a lot of moving parts. Things can go wrong quite quickly. Things can go wrong when you're shipping. Things can go wrong during manufacture that you only realize once everyone's riding it. So it helps if you have someone who can respond quickly. But what doesn't help is, hey, I ordered a bike from Germany and I live in New Zealand. It doesn't work. Now what do I do? Yeah, I'm never going to buy one again is probably what happens. I doubt people really, ship it halfway across the world to get it fixed, or maybe they do. I don't know. Um, I think personally, I would more sort of be like, okay, well, I'd try and fix it, but it's unlikely that I would send it back. Plus, to send it back, I mean, it's going to be gone for a while.
All right, get me out of commission. Sorry to jump around, but I wanted to go back to your business doing direct to consumer, or direct, but you selling online to consumers themselves. I guess 2021 was your first full year doing web sales. I just wanted to get your conclusion on having that period of web sales and what your conclusions were about going that route, because I remember talking to you earlier, and it was one of these things you were mulling over for a while, and then you finally decided to do it. And so, do you have any regrets? Did you learn one valuable lesson from it? Are you going to continue to do it?
No regrets. One thing I can tell you is it's extremely competitive. So there's guys out there, there's shops out there who really know what they're doing when it comes to Google Shopping, Google AdWords, making sure their products get noticed. That requires a lot of work. It takes a long time to set up. It's something I'm actually currently looking into. However, it's still not the core of my business. The core of my business is bike shops. And when it comes to end consumers, one thing I noticed is the largest portion of sales when I look at end consumers, most of them just get in touch with me directly. Write me a message, write on Instagram, use the contact form, and ask questions. It's only for, shall we say, lower price point products that sell well. Anything, shall we say, going over 300 francs. Anything going over 300 francs is people are always getting in touch, talking to you, writing a message. I guess that kind of trust. They want to know that there's someone on the end and that they're buying from a reliable source.
Definitely. And then jumping back again, on our first talk, you had this gut feeling that you gave to us, and it was something along the lines of, when you recognize a good product and you recognize there's high demand for it, perhaps there is perhaps smaller companies would have less of a risk to manufacture it in-house. And I was wondering if you saw some more examples. I guess Pembry would be the prime example that we've already talked about. But I was wondering if you saw any more examples of this, and did you pick them up in terms of distributorship because you felt that that ball was rolling and there was some value there?
Well, definitely. We Are One is the other classic. I mean, they make rims and a frame. What I love about Pembry and We Are One is they don't have a lot of products. I think as soon as you have a huge amount of products, you start to kind of lose the overview, and it becomes difficult. So it means you have to stock more. So you have availability issues because you have a lot more products. Of course, maybe it's more interesting for a consumer, but it becomes difficult as a business model. If you have less products, but you maybe focus on the best and really high quality and really good stuff, and you keep it simple, I think for a small business, I think that's a much better business model. It's, for me, that's also quite interesting. That's one thing I do look at when I'm looking around, and I'm quite picky these days. I have made some interesting choices in the past with brands which I no longer distribute. But I think that's one of the things I look at very quickly is, okay, they've got a really cool product. Okay, how many other products do they have? And it's quite interesting how I find you can gauge what sort of company it is by, I know this isn't going to sound great, but by the amount of crap they sell. So, if they've just got a few really high, top end, really nice products, you're like, okay, this is interesting. This is going to be an interesting company to work for or work with. They obviously care about what they do. Everything they're doing is high end. These are the kind of things where I always get a good vibe. If you say, oh, okay, I found a really cool product, and then you go on the website and they have thousands of different things, loads of different stuff, and you realize, okay, most of this is just manufactured in China or bought from a catalog, most likely, and had their brand stuck on it. That's, for me, that's a bit of a red flag. I'm a bit like, okay, this isn't that kind of home brew, home manufacturing, tight knit, rider owned company that I'm looking for.
So your gut feeling serving you well.
So far. It is in that aspect. I'm not sure about other aspects of my life.
What kind of brands are you excited about at the moment? I mean, brands you work with already, or brands that are out there doing interesting work, stuff where you perk up and sharpen your pencil?
Brands I work up with at the moment, and if there's any other brands I'm looking at, I'm afraid I'm not going to tell you who they are.
Which space are they in?
That's on a need-to-know basis.
Okay.
Watch their web store.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's one thing I noticed, actually. If you find something good, you got to be really quick. There's normally a press release on Pink Bike or Vital or wherever, and you got to be quick. You got to be in there within half a day, otherwise they get snapped up. And normally, first come, first serve generally tends to work quite well.
Okay, all right.
But how do you spot this kind of stuff?
You look.
Is there an unwritten list that you have pinned behind you in your office?
Just surfing Pink Bike all day.
Starts tingling, Bryson.
Exactly, the spidey sense.
And I'm like, ooh, I'm getting a tingle. I need to go on the internet.
That's what we need. Bye.
I have this feeling I need to go online. No, anyway. No, I mean, I just look, I research, I have a look around. I mean, some of the time I'm pretty happy with what I got, and I like to focus on growing that and seeing where that can go. But I'm always on Instagram, always on all the media channels, and if something pops up that's interesting, I have everything ready. Email, everything's ready to go. So I normally fire one off and see what happens.
Nice. Very good. Bryson, do you got anything more? Or is there anything else you want to talk about, James?
At the very beginning, you asked me, about challenges of 21 and maybe 22 and how it's going to go further. I have to be really honest with you. 21 was quite a surprising year. It was unusual. It wasn't how years normally go. I mean, it was great in terms of sales, but it was quite volatile, shall we say, very up and down. Oh yeah, I had weeks where I went I set myself a weekly target, and I had weeks where I went way, way over targets, and then weeks where nothing happened, nothing. It's like everyone just died. I do think it's kind of with the whole situation now, and as soon as there's bad news, everyone focuses on buying toilet paper, and that's it. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to get better in 2022. I think there's going to be some interesting challenges for next year. I think, delivery is going to be the big ones, but I think there's going to be some changes. But as I always say, every problem is just, an opportunity in disguise.
That's very true. And I mean, I think there's also...
How cheesy was that?
It was fantastic. Such a perfect tee up. It's like, just... That's going to be a hole-in-one. But it's interesting because there's a couple of of course, it was the end of the year or the beginning of the year, depending on which way you look at it. There's a number of interviews with industry people, and be it producers, bike companies, component manufacturers, whatever it is, and everyone has that big question mark, right? Because it's like in 21, everyone was like, can we trust this boom? Do we really need to increase our capacities by like 200%? That seems pretty risky. Now it's kind of going on, so people are still selling the stuff. I mean, delivery time on an XT derailleur through official channels is still, whatever, 6 months or whatever. So some of the same problems.
18 months.
So yeah, so
18.
Some of the same problems we discussed a year ago, they're somehow still around. But there's also a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. And personally, I just don't have the visibility on it, because some people, some shops, some companies, they appear to make it happen. They do get product, and others, they just never get anything. And I think that's, I think one of the big problems for 22 and maybe also 23 is going to be that, some companies will just be pushed out of the market because they can't get any product in, and they need to, they're not selling any bikes. They don't have any customers left that want to sell their bike service. They don't have any parts to service and stuff like that. So it's a big question mark still.
To be honest, it's something I've been a bit concerned with, actually. If you look at, for example, if you distribute Shimano, you're not selling anything right now. I mean, there's no stock, and maybe you sold loads and loads of stuff and you got some cash in the bank, but that's not how business works. The more you sell, the more work you have to do, the more effort, the more packaging you have to buy. It's well, you're the finance guy. I believe it's called economies of scale.
Exactly, something along those lines.
Pascal?
Something along those lines.
Yeah, so the more you sell, the more work that goes in, and then if you can't keep that momentum going, I mean, you can plateau and keep selling, or you can sell everything and then you end up selling nothing. But that's the worst thing that can happen. Then it's game over. You're a sitting duck. It has to keep moving. It has to keep coming in. The more you sell, the more expenses you're going to have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
that's an interesting one. I do believe people will start to go out of business and will start to suffer. I have to say, personally, I am seeing some people struggling.
Okay. Yeah,
and some people aren't. But I've even seeing really good shops. I'm noticing, I'm not noticing. It's just a gut feeling I have. I'm like, is it really going that well? It's always a question. But I think that's, you need to be versatile. You need to, if you can't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're noticing, okay, this isn't going well, then you need to find something else. You need to try something new.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Back to Robin's question, if you got a brand that you're losing your business to because they're saying direct, answer's simple: find another brand. You don't need to get rid of that brand because you probably still sell something, but find something else.
We also reached out on some of the friends of the podcast and some questions. And they actually have a pretty fitting one from Bennett, brother of Anna Newkirk. And, I think it's a good bookender. Does the job take the enjoyment out of the
What's up, Bennett?
out of the hobby? Are you still enjoying the bikes as much as before?
Yes, it can do. But it also can be the complete opposite. But yeah, you can have bad days. You can have large shipments get lost. You can get depressed, and the last thing you want to do is go and ride a bike because you're kind of fed up with it. I normally go for a walk. or a beer. But the answer is, I've chosen to do this as my profession. It's also my hobby. I'd say I don't suffer very much from it recently, but I have had times where I have, especially when I transitioned from also working and doing this to doing this 100%. I had a few moments where I'm like, is this worth it? I love biking, but I'm having issues. There's problems everywhere. It's difficult, and I'm not enjoying biking that much anymore. That can happen, but on the other side, and you have a really good time, and you're like, hey, this is my hobby, this is my dream, this is what I'm doing, and that's the best feeling in the world. That's a huge plus. That's you really are living the dream. So, but you can also be on the other side, and that's life, yin and yang.
There you go.
There it is. But yeah, to answer that question, it does happen sometimes. But as my wife says, pull your finger out and deal with it and stop being a baby. So yeah, you do. And what helps me the best is, I have to say, what helps me the best is when I'm done, I like to go for a ride by myself, actually. Just completely on my own, go out there, clear my head, don't talk to anyone, I'm not with anyone, go and ride, and I normally come back and I'm like, now I know why I love this. That's always a big help.
Wow. It's very, very positive message to start wrapping it up. We have, unfortunately, because last year we've done our closeout questions with you before, so then can't do those again. But we have another funny listener question to close out that we want to use for closeout from Vitor, and he's asking, if you could transform yourself into something else than a human being, what would it be?
Hang on a second. Can you transform yourself into a human being? Do that for me on camera.
No, Bryson, no.
And from here, it went downhill a bit. We'll hold that back for a B-sides compilation at a later stage. Back to the show. All right, James, thank you very much for your time. It was all a good chat, as always. If our listeners have any questions or want to learn more about you and what you're up to, your products, your brands, etc., where can they find you?
Biketheworld.ch is the best place.
Very good. Well, we'll put that up in the show notes. Again, thank you for your time. Bryson, thank you for your time. It was awesome. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
A pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was perfect, fun as always.
Thanks for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. As we mentioned at the top of the show, you can find all the links and the relevant info to this episode in the show notes. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, why don't you share it with your riding buddies? It really helps us grow our show and reach more cool people like you.
That's great advice, Pascal. I really enjoyed making the episode as well. And I'm really looking forward to all the cool stuff we're going to be doing in 2022. So stay tuned, guys.